Good afternoon. It's Joyful Hermit. I'm going to make sure we've got some sound here going well. I've checked the inner parts of the laptop to make sure sound is going up. I don't really have, I have other things I want to say. I found my notebooks that have about the angels. I have my course that I took in Avila, Spain on John of the Cross by the leading expert on John of the Cross, Dr. Elizabeth Wilhelmson, who now is suffering, I think, just difficulties with memory or maybe Parkinson's, or I'm not sure what. We've talked on the phone once, but she relocated me about 4 years ago, right before Christmas, and found my email and remembered me from that class back in 2005. And I thought the world of her knowledge of John of the Cross and what she taught has been a lifelong bulwark for me of understanding the soul and all that leads into our souls. So it might be nice for me to share my notes from that class. I think other people would welcome it because she isn't able to do that anymore. And she's a gift, was a gift of teaching of John of the Cross. Like I say, she was the world leading expert at the time and in previous years. So what a lovely person, beautiful person. And I was just stunned that she reached out to me, sent me a book that she had written, and still keeps in contact. I sort of lost, I have to write to her and tell her what's going on with me, but anyway, another lovely person in my life. But I've now tried to contact my son-in-law through texting, asking him if he could please explain to me or tell me if my eldest daughter really meant what she supposedly said to her sister. She probably did. Her sister, I don't think, would make anything like that up, but didn't go into it. I'm sure more was said, and if possible, I would like to know why, and if there's anything I can possibly do to mend fences or put things at peace or rest. So that's been hard, and my pain level has been rugged. I think I have maybe 5 pills left of this one medication that is not as bad as the morphine. But I was told to take half the morphine dose, which morphine is the worst medicine for damaged kidneys. Once they're already damaged, there's pills you should not take. And that's one of them. Other than the pain doctor has decided that if it's a low dose, it might be okay. He wouldn't do it to his body, I'm sure. But I cannot get by on a low dose like that. And I'm struggling along with this other medicine that I'm just taking the regular dose. So I get emotional. I've been in bed. I got concerned that I couldn't really do right by the dogs today. I took them out, and then I tried to make another soup last night, and just standing like for 10 minutes doing the preparation and getting things so just killed my back. I had to come back and lay down. It gets to the point where I can't tolerate that pain. And then I get distraught, and these little animals sense it. And then my voice changes, or I get tense. And I know that's part of my children's memories because I had no pain medication when they were little and was cooking meals and trying to take care of them. And I was physically in terrible pain. So, but all I know to do is to let go and let God deal with all of this. with the suffering, and I just never dreamed that this pain doctor would do this. And it's just a reminder to do not trust in men, do not trust in princes, men meaning humankind, people. Trust in the Lord thy God. We are human, we are fallible, and he somehow got a bee up his bonnet, and part of it's my fault, I think. I left a message twice in the week reminding, please, could you get this ordered? Got this robotic text message back, only allowed to leave one message a week. So pain doctors have a lot of power and control over people's suffering. And that's sort of sad, because people in pain can get desperate and very upset, and I'm not going to allow that if I can. But it's going to get down to, if I can't handle the pain, I'm going to just have to take the medicine that's bad, that's hard on the kidneys, and just let life go, let it unfold as it needs to. So we'll just see what happens. But I'm praying and trying to use my pain as prayer for others, asking God again, do you want me doing videos with more content? I hope and pray that's what I want if I do them. Or should I just do silent writing and more poetry? So I did find this poem. I have this big binder just filled with poems that I've written over the years. This was an early one. It was before I was Catholic. And I started in, and it just was coming out of me like automatic writing. And it was so beautiful. And then something happened to my laptop. This was back in the early 90s, maybe 1992. Typing this poem, and it's just flowing out of my fingers. This ode to God and all. And then the computer lost all of it, all but the first stanza. And I then wrote about the last stanza, how it got lost. It really was the most beautiful poem that ever came out of my heart, soul, mind, and fingers. But so it's sort of humorous. It's humbling. And so I'm going to read it. It started out, this was the first stanza. I shall live and die just as any other butterfly, noticed by some, forgotten by all, except in mass generic recall. And then I had written on, but it all just disappeared off the computer screen. So I wrote on further then, an entire poem of life described, my best ever hymn penned, deep thoughts from God, spirit to man, in moment lost, insignificant as the butterfly, who's hid in the flock, fluttering by, noticed briefly, or more likely not, dies quietly and quickly forgot. My poetry gone, the message angelic, private song to unnecessary things that breathe, hope, and fly without identity. The stanzas, first, last, are all that remain of soul's repast, with metaphors on November morn, words in computer forever shorn. But I have lived well, as best I could, in truth, love, in swell of obstacles in my path, winging with legions of butterflies, living and breathing a life as important as any beast, bird, fish, bug, slug, plant. For inconsequential though I be, and lower than man, it's life to me. So I like that. Too bad all the big parts were gone in that old computer. You know, the old types of. It was an Apple. It was a little laptop. It was a cute little thing, but it was old in it. And anyway, that's. Here's another one. Let's see what I dated this one. This was back in 1996. So I had been a Catholic for a while. And it was on the second day of suffering, not too deep a message, just enough for a simple mind. He tends my battered body, numbs my head, and nestles to my hurting heart. Praises. So this was just a poem that I wrote on the second day of a bad pain siege. I'd gotten through the worst of it, the worst of the first day, and was into the second. So just wrote a poem. It's a time of transformation and transcendence, a time for love and recompense, a time to walk with Jesus on his path to Golgotha. It's a time of gnarly suffering and a time for broken pride. It's a night to cry his sorrow and a day to swallow blood. It's a time of deep remembrance and a time to look anew at what our Savior did for us on the cross he leads us to. For in each breath is life and death, enough to change our souls, to die to self and rise to serve, ourselves as broken bread, to feed our fellow man with love, enough to heal our sickly world, and learn to humbly place ourselves in simple servanthood. It's a time of transformation and transcendence. If we but use our common sense and place our souls inside his heart, we'll bloom with Christ through Lent. See, when I didn't understand even the liturgical seasons until I was 1995. Let's see, I was 44 years old when I became Catholic. And I also have the poem that I wrote in honor of, there's Listen to My Blood. That's one of my favorite poems. That one did come to me as I was walking in a winter morning over to the convent through their woods. But anyway, this was written in right before. It was an answer to my prayer, may I join the church now, or should I wait for some reason? The priest had suggested that it was getting time for me if I wanted to. That was August. I had started private instruction or talking to him on the 29th of March of 1995. Finally gave in to God and got an appointment. I called him on the 27th. He got me in on the 29th. This was a priest that was a stinker, turned out. Didn't do anything imprisonable. Well, maybe could have been. He not really. Just had issues, big issues. He'd been an alcoholic and didn't have a good recovery. Had a personality of a dry drunk. And he didn't like women. He could be very nasty to women. He was very threatened by me. He was excited at first because he always wanted to be important and thought, oh, here's my mystic. Something big is going to happen, external stigmata. Something big, and then I will be her director and I will be in the limelight. It was sad. And he wanted me to tell him every single thing, every experience or message I'd get. And then he'd get upset because some were for him. And things that I was shown that he was doing, like stockpiling money. He's the one that had the big gambling thing going in the next county that used up poor people's incomes, and he stockpiled it. And later on, he used it to give to a man who wrote some books. He was an Australian man who became popular, very popular. I never trusted him, frankly, and I didn't like his book. I didn't read his books. Too Catholicism light. I didn't trust the man. because he was all out for fame himself. But this priest then gave him lots of money in exchange for letting him go along with him on his travels and his speeches. And so he wanted fame. And he realized I wasn't going to give him that fame, that kind of fame. So he turned on me big time. But at first it was okay. I just about didn't go back. Maybe it was about in April when he got very ugly to me at one of our meetings, our instructional meetings. Very abusive, what he said. And I said, well, I'm not going to come back. He said, well, do you want to set up another appointment? I said, no, I think I'm going to decline, and started to leave. And he just begged me and begged me. Oh, no, 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 stay. I just had to be that way. That's how it is in Catholic Church. I was being the devil's advocate. That's what the Vatican expects of me. All this malarkey. No, priests are not to be that way. They are to be shepherds. They are to be little Christs, alter Christi, alter Christs for us, and not to mistreat or abuse. Because I was just going to continue on with my reading. I would read everything Catholic and just learn that way. And, but of course, God chose otherwise for me. So this was the poem. I'd had a dream in answer to my prayer. Should I join then? And ironically, the priest chose the evening after an evening mass. Just private. And he just happened to choose the 11th anniversary of the car accident. That was my crucifixion, August 22nd of 1984. So August 22nd of 1995, I was confirmed in the Catholic Church. And he had just about asked everyone at Mass to stay for my confirmation. And then he thought, no, he said, something told me I better not. Well, and how? The second daughter and my son came. They wanted to come. My oldest daughter refused to come. And then there's Sister Henrietta, my godmother, who I had met at the convent. She'd become my godmother and my sponsor because I knew no one else. She knew more of my mystical life. And I was told, good not to tell anyone, and all this big secrecy, which really made things awkward. It was fine, and I obeyed. I did that. But it really, I think, ended up being, I don't know if it's unnecessary. At the time, it was fine. It was my hometown. Things happened anyway that I got targeted. So all this stuff is up to God anyway. And it's okay. You obey your superiors, they say, and all that. You have to discern if they're good. So finally, my spiritual guide had for years since said that Teresa of Avila said, no spiritual director is better than a bad one. And if you read her letters and read the nitty-gritty big fat books of her life, you'll get more of the truth of Teresa of Avila's life. She had to go after a couple of priests. She had to get rid of a bad spiritual director. She had to set straight a priest who was a womanizer. And I had an experience with a womanizer priest. And he was mostly involved with religious sisters dotted all over Midwest. So I'm a realist, though, and I think I should share some of these things. We can't, maybe if people don't go in with blinders on. I was very naive, and I'm still idealistic, but I know the reality, and there's evil. The devil will get into the church any which way the devil can, and that includes into the clergy. But there are many, many great priests. And I'm thinking if I share some of these things online, if a priest ever listens, it might help them to be determined. Never will I let the devil do those things to me. what the different priests I had involved, and had to report, or a couple others that even weren't acted on then. So, you can say, I won't be a monsignor like that, or I won't be a bishop like that. So, anyway, this was the answer, though, that I had. Part of it. I wrote it in a poem. It was a dream that I had, so I describe it in this poem. An arched hallway extends beyond human sight, stone and wood reaching upward in Gothic point. Double doors stand open, doorway upon doorway, at close intervals, down, down this eternal passage. To the left are windows, their tiny triangular panes filter soft light from an out-of-doors which bespeaks of lush green foliage, casting misty fertility on this peaceful corridor. To the right are solid walls of depth and purpose, an occasional closed door which may be opened as necessity or desire may request study and respite along the way. I stand in the first open portal, my eyes gazing upon this my soul's pathway, and seeing all opened before me, nothing closed. Seemingly I am free at last to take this step through this first doorway of doorways, into that which God has prepared for me, into his holy church and his sacred heart. Later, as if this sight were not enough, I ask, may I step now into this my heart's longing, tread in awe upon silent stones, worn smooth and tear-damped by reverent souls. Pleased laughter resounded like pealing bells, a holy antiphon to my gingerly quest. And I saw Jesus then, and he spoke to me in the dream. My darling child, and then more laughter from Jesus. There is nothing holding you back. Of course you may enter, for it pleases me. He said that to me. And all of this, and this, at times of trials, I can vividly remember that dream and that corridor and how it went on and on. And I knew the more I was into Catholicism and the more I passed by the temporal crud that goes on because we are temporal sinners. We humans make up the body of Christ, and that includes church workers, clergy, parishioners, myself, and through all these ages. It was within the first 100 years they had heresies going on. The apostles, some of them were still alive. Well, John was. He lived to be over 100, I think, or 95 or something like that. But and then into the 2nd century, on through all these heresies that would develop, because humankind, we can't keep our mitts off things. We can't leave it alone. We don't think that Jesus' way was good enough, I guess. We're going to improve upon Jesus' way. And we're going to make up all these canon laws, 1752, maybe more by now. And then we're going to have all these people hired to try to sort through them and to who's going to implement them? Who's going to enforce all these laws? Well, they don't get. Some do, some don't. It becomes a total distraction from the spiritual depth of this corridor and all the rooms opening up for us, filled with learning and books and beauty and treasures and spiritual depths and the depth of the Mass, the power of the Mass, the stairway to heaven, all of these things. So it's up to us to keep clear enough, to keep clear of the temporal Catholic world. Don't get caught up in it. Definitely don't let it throw you off so that you leave. because you'll miss out on the treasure chest. You'll miss out on this corridor of depth that pleases Jesus so much that we enter into and keep going, keep going, keep learning, keep praying, keep learning the spiritual life, the scriptures, Jesus, keep coming into his sacred heart. And after this, I knew that was my answer. It was powerful. It was filled with peace and beauty and truth of Jesus. His laughter was so joyous and loving, and I was naive, and he knew that he would have known that. And, I had a little honeymoon period. I also had a sign at that Mass that fortunately no one was included, thankfully, because I had already had a forewarning that afternoon of August 22nd of 1995. I was going to wear a dress, and instead I changed it to some very dressy pants and top, loose pants and top, because I was shown that I would be slain by the Spirit, by the Holy Spirit. Shown in advance when I was trying to figure out what dress I would wear, because this was a special occasion for me. I viewed it as my spiritual marriage of earth and of my new life. And it was, indeed, it was. So something happened when the priest did the cross with oil on my forehead. And that sign was so powerful, and it did something to that priest briefly. He couldn't help himself. He had issues, and terrible temper also. And his ego was fragile, and he was very resentful of me and jealous. So, and he did run me out. I had to leave. He even at one point, the secretary became a friend. She would call me and warn me. Don't come to Mass. Don't come over. Don't come to pray. He's told the custodians and the men, he's had a couple of men who were sort of like his henchmen, his lackeys, I called them. I called it like it was, but some hoo-hoos. And they're prepared to, they're told to evict you from the premises if you step foot on the grounds. And foolishly, I even called the police and asked, can somebody have you evicted from a church that you belong to? And the policeman said, well, what church is this? And I said, well, I don't want to say which one. And he says, well, the only question I have is, why would anyone go to a church that they put out the word if they have to bodily take you away? Because that's what it was. As she said, they're willing, they know they're to bodily remove you if you dare step on it took up a whole block of ground. So anyway, it got pretty bad, I tell you. But I was very courageous then, and I sort of think, maybe God hasn't used me very much in later life because I wore out to all that. And I became more passive and more accepting and decided live the life of the early Desert Fathers. They weren't in parishes. They didn't involve with people. I mean, they did, they were hospitable if someone came to their hut and wanted information. And I consider that if someone leaves a comment, it's like they're coming to my hut, coming to my bedroom here. And ask questions. I'll give answers. I have to remind myself not to do much more than just give answers, because I can then offend people quite easily, because I see through situations at times and I can lay out a challenge. I expect a lot from people. I expect a lot of myself. But I do question still, and I'm praying about it, are my videos something God isn't pleased with? I don't know. And but I'll keep going until I get some indication I should write, or maybe I should try writing also. I have found so many notebooks. I have so much writing that I've done, but none of it's organized. Like all my poetry, even, or all these other writings that I did, and diaries, but I think God saw that maybe I wasn't up to the task. Maybe I wasn't strong enough to endure more of the persecutions. Um, After my neck was nearly broken, and they would not operate on me now. He said if life-threatening, because my neck is that bad that the surgery is going to be that serious. But now with my other health problems, with my kidneys, and whatever's going on with my lymphocytes, I can't get another doctor. I don't know if I should try to move back to the Midwest, to a big city, or try to get to relatives in Texas or something where I could get a doctor to help me figure out my lymphocytes. I sort of, for now, just decided, hey, Lord, I want to come to you. I'm so tired of the temporal world. I was even more disgusted by what happened to my family member, and she didn't do well this weekend. And she's been put into a horrible situation, backstabbed by a best friend, was. And it affected her ability to perform, which of course it would. I wrote and said, I don't know anyone greater than her, for her stamina to even participate with the person who did her in. And, but, as someone close, I could see it in the face. I know that it was hard, very, very hard. So, hope she'll persevere. She's got spunk. So, more than me, I'm hoping, because I had enough of the persecutions and the injuries and hasslings and being run out of places, and this has been far more peaceful. It's just staying in my hut here, my hermitage. And but I did go off for about a year. I really got into distractions that were just dumb and put me to sleep kinds of things. Not I could have been praying. I could have been doing so much more. So I am concerned about my I've accepted I may be in purgatory for eternity. I'm hoping not hell. But there's more to how I became Catholic. God literally led me in. And he was so pleased. He says, of course, my darling child, for it pleases me. And of the times I've had Jesus come to me, he was the most joyous and excited at that point. And yes, of course, It's practically like, why have you taken so long? So, and it has been wonderful. Despite all the other, and the sign I was given, even my mother, she would, after I got ousted out of the soup kitchen that I'd started, that was horrible. That crushed me. I loved doing that, and it was hard on my body, terribly hard. God gave me graces and miracles to be able to withstand the pain. I had no pain to do that soup kitchen effort, and to work amongst the teams that I built up, these huge groups of volunteers. Oh, it was wonderful. The whole town was getting involved, and I loved it. And but it had to come to a stop because God wanted me for the hermit life. And that was a gift, and it was also sort of something I needed to do to make reparation for some sins. So Virgin Mary had told me I needed to start that, and how she wanted it developed and everything. It's a little different model than usual soup kitchen. So it was wonderful, but my mother called and she says, now finally, and my sisters called, now finally will you get out of that church. It's not Christian. It's not Christian. Christians don't treat people like you've been treated. But my mother and sisters hadn't read the lives of mystics. My mother didn't know. Well, she knew sort of that she had a little bit of a different daughter. That I had different, but she was more in the idea of a little more ESP type stuff. But when you read the lives of mystics, you understand it is suffering with a capital S for most of them, if not all. I mean, all in some ways, but others, and I think that's been my main assignment has been suffering. Obviously, look at me now. Oh my gosh, I'm so sick with this pain, and I'm so crushed by my pain doctor doing this, turning on me like this. It's been painful. That too, but I'll see. I'll try another pain doctor on Monday, see if I can get in someplace else. And there's one really close. That would be handier for me than to drive through traffic. But as I'm getting worse, well, I'm not getting worse necessarily, other than in pain and in weakness. I'm sickly. I don't know what this lymphocyte problem is, and I may not find out till it gets really bad, till something else really bad happens, and then they'll figure it out. Somebody will figure it out. ER or something will. But so anyway, there's a lot of suffering in life that suffering for others. I grieve for what happened to the one person, and I grieve for the woman who did it. I grieve for the man. It was like an Adam and Eve thing. This man fell for the Eve. Eve tempted him and he fell for it. And I don't think it's going to work out well, what he agreed to with this other woman, with their career, to work with her and drop the family member. They'd been a great partnership, but this other person went behind the back and for some time and talked him into going with her. And so anyway, it can be treacherous, the temporal world. Oh my goodness. And and the temporal church world, no matter what church you're in. Somebody was telling me their daughter and son-in-law had become Episcopalian, and he'd grown up lifelong Catholic or something, but left. And then they left the Episcopal Church because a choir director that everyone liked was unfairly fired, terminated. So people quit. And I guess that's one way to express outrage, but if you're Catholic, don't give up the treasure chest because of temporal things. Don't give up the spiritual, eternal treasure chest. There's too much to be gained and learned in the Catholic Church of the spiritual life that you aren't going to get anywhere else. I'm sorry. Not the full breadth of it all. You'll get bits and pieces, but the Eucharist alone, the Mass alone, I can tell you from being a Protestant 44 years and in various Protestant different churches seeking around, trying to find where I fit in, finding answers. And I suppose I should talk about that, how and all the different things that led me in to where I needed to be. But and this is I'm not one who says, like somebody had left a comment on my blog to me that there is no salvation outside the Catholic Church, and always obey any priest no matter what they say. No. Use your head. That's what my spiritual da, who lived to be 99 and a half, he said, use your head. Why would you let this priest mistreat you like this? I said, well, I honestly thought that, I said, I thought I was just being tested to see if I really had what it takes to be Catholic. I thought I was being so mistreated to see if I could stick it out. And he says, no, no, the Catholic Church doesn't do this to people. it's be loving, it's be accepting. So, anyway, I do laugh about it, because a lot of it was my fault for being so naive and idealistic. So if I can help other people to not do as I did, and to not, I had read books of old, things that were the nitty gritty of the spiritual, like what Teresa of Avila wrote, John of the Cross, and Francis de Sales, and all, and these holy, good, wonderful, wonderful saints. And I just thought, well, everybody be like, let's all be like that. But no, us, and we're not all, and we're, so, and they make mistakes too. Priests make mistakes, and they can have some real problems. They're human. Some of them have maybe false vocations, got in and they haven't gotten out yet, or they will, or they'll have deeper conversions. That's why we pray for them, so that they will have deeper conversions and recognize if they're not if they're too much in the temporal aspects and not grounded in the spiritual, to become more spiritual. So we're all a work in progress, all of us, until our last breath. And then we'd better have God on our breath and on our minds and our hearts, so that we continue our progression. When I'm thinking of Catherine of Genoa and all that God told her through the Holy Spirit, that if we have blocked out God when we die, we've blocked him out. Let's never block out God. And I will never leave Catholicism. My mother had a terrible time that I would not, but I didn't feel comfortable telling her my experiences and why, and that Jesus wanted me there. And we all are ones to lift it up. If we all would be very spiritual and steeped in the spiritual Catholic Church, and let the temporal Catholic stuff fall by the wayside and build up the spiritual, we could do a great deal of good. Each of us on our own, all together, can lift up the church and pray for the priests and report if some are being, or together go in a group first and talk with a priest who's mistreating people. So, or however, whatever is the problem, pray for them. I tried in vain with a young priest who had been a seminarian that my son and I had sacrificed to help send money for his education, and he wasn't at all, when I met him finally, he wasn't at all interested in the spiritual aspects. And that was so disappointing. I was crushed. And that I'd been, how old was I then? 60, 62 maybe? I don't know. It's crazy. So I'm a born idealist. I'm very trusting. I'm naive. And I think it's probably best I not try to change too much. Other than I'm going to stay clear of I'll just have to take what mays with the pain, what comes. Take what comes with it. And I've pretty much accepted that if I end up dying or stroke or something from too much pain, that's what God has allowed me. I'm just not going to fuss around with a pain doctor begging for pain meds that won't hurt my kidneys. And a good enough dose, the dose that I need for the kidney pain and the arachnoiditis. He doesn't realize he doesn't have arachnoiditis. Thank God. Thank God most people don't. So, and that'll be fine. I don't, and please pray that my son-in-law will respond, but I don't think he's going to. I'd like to know what's going on with that daughter if possible. But as I was texting, he put up this thing, message is not accepted or something. So I'll have to accept in a while that no answer means yes, don't want anything to do with you. So, but I have to make my arrangements, my financial arrangements, my house arrangements, get my trustee figure changed from her to someone else if she can't or doesn't want to. So, and I understand if someone doesn't, but I would always like reconciliation first, of course, but sometimes we can't have that. And God only knows. So I'll rejoice when I have my judgment and I will be told what it was that I did. So that's a good thing. Anyway, God bless his real presence in us. And oh my goodness, I did this. I had this thing. It was called Called to Suffer. I did newsletters and wrote these newsletters that went out. I think I had a circulation. I think I had close to 500 people that would receive these over the country. It was fun. I've had a lot of good things that were fun and I enjoyed doing. I'm a writer, so most of it's been involved with writing. What's this one? Another poem. Wait Until Honor. That's another poem. Wait until honor. I was told that message. Wait until honor. For another time. Have a lovely evening. I might be back with the angels, going through the different choirs of angels and what I read from that very, very old book. I took notes on it. So this will be fun. This will be fun. Stay in our spiritual cocoon, our spiritual place where we belong, and life is good. So, talk to you all later. God bless you, and God bless Jesus Christ.